everyone, it's Thursday and you're watching Within the Frame. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. North Korea launched a military spy satellite on Tuesday night, which according to Seoul's National Intelligence Service has successfully been placed into orbit. This came after two failed attempts, one in May and one in August, and the agency linked success this time to possible assistance from Russia. In response, South Korea partially suspended the 2018 Inter-Korean military agreement, restoring reconnaissance and surveillance operations near the border. Such heightening tensions came at a time when President Yoon Suk Yeol was on a state visit to the United Kingdom. What are the details of North Korea's spy satellite launch? And with the UK, how does South Korea intend to boost its defense and security ties? For this, in the studio, we have Professor Min Jung-hoon from the Korean National Diplomatic Academy. Welcome, Professor Min.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being with us. And we also have David Cox, a journalist from The Guardian. Good to see you, David.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being with us. Now, first question to our Professor Min. So North Korea launched a spy satellite for the third time on Tuesday night after two unsuccessful launches in May and August. Before we delve deeper into the details, though, was it successful?
Yes, I think so. It seems that North Korea's military spy satellite has entered into orbit this time, but it will take some more time to determine whether it is operating properly. But the North Korean state media claimed that the satellite took pictures of U.S. Military bases in Guam and sent them back to Pyongyang. But the South Korean defense minister didn't accept the report because it would take a substantial amount of time to conduct normal spy missions after entering into orbit. He mentioned that it would take at least 3 days to determine if the satellite is working properly. And he also pointed out that Russia seems to provide a helping hand for North Korea's launch success this time. He said that North Korea's first and second attempts failed, as you mentioned, because of the engine issues. But the engine was successful this time. So it suggests that Russia could make a significant contribution to resolving the engine issues. Anyway, it seems that North Korea made meaningful progress in its satellite technologies this time.
Right. But Professor Min, as you have already pointed out, even if the reconnaissance satellite was placed properly into the orbit, it is quite a different matter whether it will function properly, right?
Yes, I think that it will take some more time before we can see whether the satellite would function properly. And it is known that it usually takes at least 3 days for South Korea and U.S. the military to conduct normal for satellite to conduct the normal spy missions after entering into orbit. So we will see if the satellite functions properly in a week.
So we'll know the result within the weekend, right?
Yes, probably I think so. And meanwhile, I think that the spy satellite will contribute to the improving North Korea's overall military capabilities. Although the camera resolution of the spy satellite is not good enough to recognize small subjects, but it can recognize major military weapons like tanks, ships, and trucks. So it will help North Korean military enhance its information capabilities over the Korean peninsula.
Right.
And it is likely that North Korea will launch additional satellites in the coming months, and it will also improve its satellite capabilities through such repeated military provocations. So it is expected that the security situation on the Korean peninsula will be more grave for some time.
Right, I see. And Professor, the reason why we were so keen about the satellite launch was because of potential help from Russia. And the National Intelligence Service did link this time's success to Russia's assistance. But to what extent do you believe Russia would have given technical support for North Korea?
Well, it's not still clear at this point what kind of the technical support Russia actually gave to North Korea this time. But as you mentioned, the National Intelligence Service of South Korea pointed out that during the North Korea-Russia summit meeting in September, Putin announced that Russia would help enhance North Korea's launch vehicle capabilities.
Right.
And after the summit, it was likely that North Korea provided Russia with blueprints and data related to the first and second launch vehicles. And Russia gave the results of the analysis back to North Korea. Of course, still no substantial or concrete evidence has been found or confirmed for Russia's help yet. But if Russia's help proves true, it will give Russia additional difficulties in the international stage.
Right, I see. Well, Professor, I'd like to also talk about the timeline. Some point out the reason North Korea fired this spy satellite when it did is because South Korea is soon going to launch its domestically developed reconnaissance satellite in California. First of all, could you tell us more about this project? And in your opinion, could this have been one of the reasons why North Korea fired this spy satellite at that time?
Yes, and South Korea is scheduled to launch its first military the reconnaissance satellite on November 30th in California in the U.S. And North Korea can take advantage of launching a military spy satellite before South Korea, and they can use it for propaganda. Like its military capabilities are superior to South Korea, and it takes a lead in the military spy technologies over South Korea. But North Korea's launch of the spy satellite is one of the main agendas that Kim Jong-un has cared about for years. And after failing to launch satellite twice, North Korean military paid most attention to launching a satellite successfully as early as possible. And probably with Russia's technical help after the summit between the two countries, North Korea could resolve the engine issues and succeeded in the launch this time. So it means that North Korea's intention to launch a military spy satellite before South Korea, I don't think it's not the main reason why North Korea was in a hurry launching the satellite this time. Instead, it has been prepared and implemented for years following its own schedule of improving its military capabilities.
Right.
It's kind of a long-term project for North Korea.
Right, I see your point. Now, Professor, we cannot leave out the response South Korean government made. It partially suspended a provision of the September 19th military agreement. But what was this clause about, and how did North Korea react to this?
Well, in response to North Korea's launch of the satellite, South Korea partially suspended the provision. It's like the partial the suspension of the article, just the one article of September 19 in the Korean military agreement, specifically setting a no-fly zone near the border between the two Koreas. And the decision allowed South Korea to immediately restore their reconnaissance and surveillance operations near the border with North Korea. South Korean government mentioned that North Korea repeatedly violated the agreement by launching ballistic missiles about 100 times less than this year and opening coastal artillery gates thousands of times and conducting frequent coastal artillery shooting exercises. And the South Korean government also mentioned that it would prepare for more suspensions of the agreement if North Korea makes additional provocations and violates the agreement. But South Korea will not have that kind of the opportunity because North Korea announced earlier today that it would immediately restore all military measures it had halted under the military agreement. It means that the military agreement does not take effect anymore, and there is a possibility, the growing possibility that military tension or conflict could emerge near the border between the two Koreas.
All right, I see. Now, what's noteworthy is that such provocation took place amid President Yoon's state visit to Britain. And so, let's briefly talk about what was agreed in London. David, Yoon and UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak agreed on a new bilateral framework called the Downing Street Accord. What was this about?
Yes, well, let's put this into perspective. I mean, this was a very significant visit diplomatically. It's the first state visit to the UK since the coronation of King Charles last year. And I think that it shows that the UK and South Korea both feel that it's really vital to create deeper security and economic ties going forwards. I mean, this kind of relationship isn't new. I mean, South Korea was the first country in Asia to sign a trade agreement with the UK post-Brexit. And I mean, and we've seen lots of, kind of trade has just really increased in the last few years between the two countries. I think lots of last year, there was something like 12 billion worth of trade between the UK and South Korea. So we've been seeing very kind of ties just being continually strengthened. I mean, and Yoon's been very clear in his desire to establish a closer relationship with the UK in the wake of just the ongoing North Korean provocation over the last 5 years. I mean, and the main aim of this new agreement is basically to kind of conduct more sea patrols, more joint military exercises. And also, I mean, there's a new supply chain agreement as well over semiconductors. And that's quite significant because that's an area in which both the UK and South Korea are strong. And there's also this agreement over energy security, particularly cooperating over nuclear and wind energy. And there's this big new commitment to try and prevent North Korea from evading existing sanctions and also tackle the ongoing cybercrime threat as well from North Korea, although we're still a little bit unclear about how exactly that's going to be done.
All right, I see. So the state visit was very significant indeed. Now, let's delve deeper into defense and security sector one by one, as there was North Korea's provocation. President Yoon underlined how South Korea and the UK are going to tackle North Korea's weapons of mass destruction threats, along with international cyber crimes, including cryptocurrency theft. In what ways could it be done, and what is the UK's view on this?
Well, I think the UK is realizing that, with all what we've seen from North Korea in the last 5 years with the missile launches and now the new spy satellite provocation, its cybercrimes are probably a more realistic threat to global security in terms of North Korea's ability to sabotage companies around the world, conduct industrial espionage, potentially steal secrets. So, I mean, I think one of the main strategies against cybercrime is going to be just basically trying to make those sanctions even stronger and using those joint sea patrols to try and do that. I mean, beyond that, I suspect there's probably going to be greater cooperation between experts between the two countries in terms of IT security, perhaps greater intelligence sharing as well. I mean, I think one of the significance is that the UK has some of the world's leading companies in cybersecurity. There's companies like Darktrace, which are renowned around the world. And a lot of that is because the UK has large rates of cybercrime here. So I think South Korea is going to look to try and tap into the UK's expertise in that area. And perhaps so that can help find new ways to kind of combat the North Korean cybercrime threats.
Right, I see, David. Well, they're also going to develop AI and quantum technology as well. And I hear they could be of use to the military. Is this right?
Yes, definitely. I mean, quantum computing, that's a big area which has been on the rise in the UK. I mean, and there's major interest both in the UK and the US in terms of how quantum computing could boost the army. I mean, the main thing is that quantum computers can just process large amounts of data just infinitely quicker and more accurately than before. And, we've just been talking about cybersecurity. That is one way of making information just more secure. I mean, if the UK and South Korea have quantum computers and they can use that to encrypt and protect information, it's unlikely that North Korea would have that ability. So that would be one major way in the coming years of making data information a lot more secure.
All right, I see your point, David. Now, one more question. Cooperation in defense and security is further going to be strengthened as both countries agreed to not only establish new 2+2 dialogue between foreign and defense ministers, but also to expand joint exercises, including joint maritime patrols, like you said earlier. To what extent are military ties expected to be boosted?
I mean, I think the answer to that is just considerably. I mean, we already saw the very beginnings of this earlier this month. I think there were 2,000 soldiers in both the UK and South Korea did a joint military exercise to commemorate a battle from the Korean War. And while that exercise was predominantly ceremonial, I mean, this new partnership is going to see more and more British Army forces deployed in South Korea for training and exercise over extended periods of time. And I think the general idea from the UK's perspective perspective is to wish to provide more of a long-term military presence in the region, given these ongoing tensions. I mean, and I think a large part of this is related to this arms deal between Russia and North Korea, which has caused a lot of concerns, and also potentially even the North Korea, China, Russia threat. I mean, so British warships are already present in South Korean ports at the moment, and I think we're only going to see a lot more of that in the coming months and years.
Right, I see. So South Korea and the UK will be able to see a significant boost in defense sector cooperation. All right. Well, back to our Professor Min. In response to the regime's launch, South Korea said that it could come up with its own unilateral sanction. And on top of that, chief nuclear envoys of South Korea, the US, and Japan said that they would roll out additional measures against regime, although the details have not yet been unveiled. But what could they be?
Well, there could be the two ways of putting some kind of the measures against North Korea. One is the imposing additional sanctions, and the other is the strengthening military cooperation among the three countries. And specifically, it is known that once the evaluation of North Korea's satellite launch is completed, South Korea, US, and Japan are expected to take additional sanctions at the unilateral, unilateral, and multilateral levels. And the additional sanctions are likely to be imposed to individuals and organizations that are related to the satellite launch. However, it will be difficult to make additional UN Security Council sanctions because China and Russia will be reluctant to imposing further sanctions against North Korea. Meanwhile, it is also expected that the military cooperation among South Korea, US, and Japan will be strengthened, including deploying US strategic assets to the Korean peninsula. And that kind of the military the cooperation will bring kind of the North Korea's the strong reaction, and then the North Korea will make the additional the provocations, like launching the ballistic missiles or something like that. So the security situation in the Korean peninsula will be more grave in the coming months.
All right, I see. Well, Professor, another major player in this issue is actually China. And so I'd like to ask you about what China's stance in this matter would be. Beijing urged all parties to remain calm and restrained while saying that it is in the interest of all parties to maintain peace and stability on the Korean peninsula. But what does these words hint at?
It clearly shows that China has a little intention to play a significant role in curbing North Korea to develop its military capabilities. As you know, the US-China strategic competition has been intensifying, and North Korea's the strategic value to China is also getting higher. Because the U.S. is working closely together with its major allies and partners in the region, like South Korea and Japan. And in response to the U.S. efforts, China is also trying to gather all the friends and partners like the Russia, North Korea, Pakistan, and Iran. So as the trilateral cooperation among the three countries, South Korea, US, and Japan, is strengthened, China's intention to work together with North Korea and Russia is also strengthened. So China is expected to maintain its stance on North Korea for some time, and North Korea will continue to take advantage of the situation to enhance its military capabilities. There will be no significant opinion change or standard change among the six countries for some time.
All right, so China is not expected to play a major role in this issue right now. All right, I see. Now, David, amid ongoing provocations from the north, how is UK seeing tensions on the peninsula? And against what backdrop is the UK seeing the importance of the Indo-Pacific region right now?
Well, in the last year, I mean, we've had concerns predicted by analysts in the UK just relating to this developing Russia, North Korea, China axis and, what impact that could have on undermining global stability. So, I mean, there's a lot of concerns that with the UK with the Ukraine war and now the conflict in the Middle East, that could destabilize the Korean Peninsula. And some people have really warned about the potential of North Korea making a Hamas-style surprise attack across the border on South Korea, particularly if the West is, perceived to be overstretched with all these other things happening in the world. So there's a lot of concerns in the UK about the potential for flashpoints across the whole Indo-Pacific region, and there's a number of potential triggers. There's the clashes of Taiwan, the South China Sea disputes, and now just like the ongoing military threat from North Korea. So these all have potential global impacts, which I think is why the UK is just looking to play a greater role.
All right, I see your point, David. Well, unfortunately, this is all the time we have for today's edition. Thank you, David, for your time and insights.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Professor Min, for your time and insights as well. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's all for Within the Frame tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with more in-depth stories. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.